All right, what's going on, guys? My bad. I played like about 20 seconds of the video, and it was I didn't have my headphone volume on, so you guys couldn't have heard that. So that's irritating. But I only got to like about in here, so that's fine. But yeah, today I'm doing my first reactions video. We are reacting to how the Detroit Pistons wasted 8 lottery draft picks in under 10 years. Who is it? It's Legend of Winning. I don't think I've ever reacted, or I mean not reacted. I don't think I've ever watched any of this guy's videos before, so I'm super excited to see what this is about. But yeah, I love seeing this stuff. You know, where the teams I root for get shit on hard. But yeah, I'm super excited because the Pistons are one of the worst drafting teams in the past 10 years for sure. I mean, go all the way back to 2003. We know how that draft wound up. Could have had Carmelo Anthony. Possibly could have had, 3, 4, 5 more championships. But who knows? Who knows? You never know. Everything happens for a reason. Psych doesn't.
Throughout the 2000s, the Detroit Pistons were a powerhouse
go.
in the Eastern Conference. Multiple 50-win seasons,
Yep.
6 straight conference finals appearances,
Yep.
and an NBA championship in 2004, which was one of the biggest upsets in NBA history.
Yo, really sad. Like, I was born in 1998, so I didn't really care about, sports until, I got into baseball about, when the Tigers were good in, like, 2006. 2005, 2006, I think, is when I started getting into baseball. Basketball, football, I didn't get into until, much later, and, once, like, 2010-ish came around, so, I want to say I really started watching maybe around 2008, 2009. I kept up with like stats and scores and stuff, but I never really watched games consistently until probably the 2010s. But yeah, as far as like the 2004 year, I didn't watch any of that. Like I was 6 years old. Or maybe I did watch it, but I don't remember.
This once glamorous franchise has been abysmal. Only one winning season, 6 coach changes, numerous mistakes, a lot of
we
which
had a
stem
41-41
from the
year.
that were selected in the draft. Because since 2010, the Detroit Pistons have had 8 lottery selections, most of which have been top 10 picks. So how is it possible that a franchise can mismanage so many top 10 picks?
Oh, man.
The draft mistakes
Does anybody have it
in the
worse
summer of 2010,
than us?
where in a very respectable class featuring players such as John Wall and DeMarcus Cousins, and a few steals
this
later
one
on in
really
the first
sucked.
round, such as Eric Bledsoe and Avery Bradley, the Detroit Pistons, with the 7th overall pick, decided to go with 6'11" big man Greg Monroe out of Georgetown. Now, at the time, drafting Greg Monroe honestly wasn't that poor of a decision. In college, he showed a lot of promise, and within the first few years in the league, he showed that at worst, he could be a solid starter on a playoff team. Unfortunately, though, it just didn't work out for Monroe and the Pistons. By the time he was a restricted free agent during the summer of 2015, the NBA had evolved significantly, to the point where
it was already
despite Monroe
evolving.
coming off of his best
I need
season
to turn
of
this
his
down a little
career,
bit.
his playing style just wasn't going to be as impactful. Not only that, the makeup of the
Turn it up
roster
there.
didn't really
Okay.
lend itself to having
Hopefully
a
you
player
guys
like
can still
Greg
hear it.
Monroe on the team. So Detroit just allowed him to walk in free agency and receive nothing in return. To make matters worse, if you go
I'm
back
fine
to
with
the
it. I was
draft
obviously
class,
fine with
you
him
have
walking,
future
but
All-Stars in Gordon
yeah, the people
Hayward
we
and
missed,
Paul George, who were selected by the Utah Jazz
that
and Indiana
hurts
Pacers.
a lot.
2 players that would have fit well with the Pistons at the time, who were looking to transition beyond the Tayshaun Prince and Rip Hamilton years as the 2 veterans were starting to age. After the 20...
just like think about it. When we were good in the 2000s, we had Chauncey Billups, an amazing point guard, Rip Hamilton, and Tayshaun Prince. Rip being an amazing, shooting guard. Tayshaun being, a solid small forward, wing player. And obviously we had Rasheed and Ben Wallace. But at the end of the day, from 2010s on, we drafted Greg Monroe. We drafted Andre Drummond, and Andre Drummond was basically our best player until, like, Blake Griffin came around. I mean, you could argue, like, Tobias Harris was our best player for a little bit, but that's just, we were always building around a big man, which is just stupid. Like, even back in the 2000s, I mean, we had solid big men. You know, when we traded for Rashid, we had Ben Wallace, but Ben Wallace like was not a first option. He was not a he wasn't a fourth option on the team. He was just there for defense, and if he was wide open, they'd pass him the ball, or he'd get a rebound, get a putback, something like that. But I mean, my thought process when rebuilding teams has always been, you know, you want a good point guard, good wings. At the end of the day, that's what you need to build around, and the Pistons have not built around that. You know, they just haven't.
Draft class, as well as another
Oh.
really bad season, the Pistons entered the 2011 draft class with the 8th overall selection. And with that pick, Detroit decided to go with 6'2" guard Brandon Knight. Now, similar to Greg Monroe, at the time, the selection made a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Knight was coming off of a very impressive freshman year, and very early on in his career,
See, I didn't really. I've never really
impactful
watched
yet.
college basketball, so I
Unfortunately
couldn't
for
really
Knight,
like
progress wasn't seen
tell
quick
you
enough
anything
from
on
the front
that.
office. So after his second year in the league, the Pistons decided to move in a different direction and package him as well as another player to the Milwaukee Bucks to receive Brandon Jennings. Now, unfortunately, that transaction failed for numerous reasons. For starters, the productivity from Brandon Jennings started to decline rather significantly. A huge contributor for this had to do with his ruptured Achilles that he suffered during the 2014-2015 season. While nursing this injury, Brandon Knight would go on to improve under other teams and quite honestly put up numbers that were very similar to Brandon Jennings. Another reason why this was a massive failure is because if you go back to the 2011 draft class, there were
Oh
players.
man, I always think about the Kemba Walker, Klay Thompson. I mean, Jimmy Fredette wasn't really anything. But then Kawhi Leonard, man. Tobias Harris isn't like amazing or anything, but like if we drafted him over Brandon Knight, that would have helped a lot more, you know. It's always like, could we have had a better draft pick? I mean, Nikola Vucevic, you know, being a big man, I wouldn't really care that much about. I feel like it took a while for him to really develop into like the borderline all-star to all-star player that he is. But Jimmy Butler all the way down there too, totally almost missed him, but this was a really good draft class. I mean, the Kyrie Irving, you know. Actually, everybody up here was kind of... Oh my god. I mean, nobody really drafted well from like 2 to 8. Man.
Were better than both Brandon Jennings and Brandon Knight. Players such as Nikola Vucevic,
Yep.
Tobias Harris, Kawhi Leonard, Klay Thompson. But if the Pistons were in the market of a point guard, well, they still had Kemba Walker available. But what makes this even worse is who the Detroit Pistons traded during that Brandon Knight transaction, which brings us to the 2012 draft class. Now,
Wait!
Again, after...
Wait, they traded Brandon Knight to the Bucks. Was this the Chris Middleton trade? Oh no, was this where we didn't... Oh my god. Like Oh man.
After another really bad season, the Detroit Pistons have another top 10 pick. And with it, they decided to go with 6'10" big man out of UConn, Andre Drummond.
And I don't hate this. I don't hate this. Obviously, if having drafted Greg Monroe, I don't like it. But, you know, if you don't have a center, Andre's a solid center. Overrated, because I believe all centers are overrated besides, like, Karl-Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, Jokic, and Bam. I think every other center is just, like, doesn't... Like, Rudy Gobert, he does not deserve the money that he's getting. Andre Drummond, I don't want to say doesn't deserve, but I wouldn't pay, you know, centers like
Honestly, at the time,
that much
and
money.
Looking at some of the players who were still available after him, was the best decision for the Detroit Pistons. What wasn't the best decision for Detroit was what they decided to do with Chris Middleton. Yes, with the second round
We
pick.
got an ad here. Hold on.
Google Play, a phone play.
But yeah, dude,
Stay connected
Chris
with
Middleton,
the
probably our
full
best
spectrum
draft pick of the 2010s. He has to be. You know, we also had Spencer Dinwiddie, but like that Chris Middleton, he argued. It's not even close. It's not even close, right? Chris Middleton was significantly our best draft pick, and we traded him away.
2012 draft, the Detroit Pistons selected Chris Middleton, and after just one season of play, They decided to package him in the Brandon Knight transaction to receive Brandon Jennings. And Chris Middleton, as many of us are familiar with his name, would go on to be a two-time All-Star and better than both Brandon Jennings and Brandon Knight. And honestly, with all of those mistakes being made, it shouldn't be too surprising that the Detroit Pistons went into the 2013 draft class with another top 10 pick. Again, it's pretty hard to criticize why Detroit decided to...
Imagine if you were to have drafted Kemba, Clay, Jimmy Butler, even Vucevic, and then this year have drafted Chris Middleton, which they did. You're looking really good for the future. You're looking really good.
Selection, which was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And despite the fact that even though, yes, there were players who were selected after KCP who were better, such as CJ McCollum and future MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, the 2013 draft class was really hard to scout for, even in the moment.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like Giannis would have ended up getting traded anyway. You know, they literally trade Chris Middleton. I mean, they trade like guys who were like projects, who ended up turning into great players. Spencer Dinwiddie and Chris Middleton, but we traded them way too soon. I feel like we may have done that with Giannis too. I don't know. But yeah, that's just...
So drafting a 6'5"
we're just missing everywhere.
Should be able to provide some 3-and-D productivity isn't the worst thing in the world, even if KCP was just projected to be a role player in the NBA. However, what does sour the little bit of optimism that I could find in this selection is what the Detroit Pistons decided to do once KCP was a restricted free agent. Because instead of trying to retain him during the 2017 offseason at the age of 24 years old, the Pistons decided to allow KCP to just walk in free agency. Since then, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has grown a lot. His efficiency is at career highs in his time in LA, as well as him being a more productive defensive player.
I mean, I don't know what we would have had. I didn't really see how much we would have had to pay him.
25 years old that you selected with a top 10 pick just doesn't make any sense at all, and it's a massive mistake.
But I don't know how much I would have wanted to pay him, if I'm being honest. We don't really have anything to build off of.
And unfortunately, the Pistons don't even have their first-round pick due to the front office pairing the draft pick with Ben Gordon as they traded him back in 2012 in an attempt to save some salary.
Oh, man.
That pick would go on to be the 9th overall selection, and with it, the Charlotte Hornets would draft Noah Vonleh in the 2014 draft class. Granted, Noah Vonleh did not turn into the
but who was drafted after?
And as of today, he is out of the league. However, looking at some of the other players who are left on the board, players such as Dario Saric, TJ Warren, and Zach LaVine, those are all players who could have been great contributors to a Pistons team.
Would have loved to have Zach LaVine on the team.
More young talent on
would have loved it.
More importantly, if you look at the makeup of the 2014 Detroit Pistons roster, drafting a player such as TJ Warren or Zach LaVine, even with the 9th overall selection, is very realistic.
Gary Harris.
But yet it still somehow gets worse, because despite Detroit not having their first-round pick during the 2014 draft, they still were able to hit huge with their second-round pick.
That hurts.
Utilized to select Spencer Dinwiddie, who in today's league has
provided Jokic was in that draft?
Contributor coming off of the bench. Unfortunately, none of that productivity was seen in Detroit, because after just 2 seasons with the Pistons, the front office decided to part ways with Spencer Dinwiddie and trade him to Chicago for Cameron Bairstow, which is someone that you may not be familiar with, because just 1 month after trading for him, the Pistons decided to just waive Cameron.
Like, what are you doing?
Another wasted draft pick.
Like, what's the point of trading him? He's on a rookie deal.
Now heading into the 2015 draft class, yet again the Pistons have another top 10 draft pick. And with the 8th overall selection, the Pistons decided to draft Stanley Johnson out of Arizona.
Oh, man.
It turned out to be one of the worst selections in a very deep 2015 draft.
That was such a...
After Stanley Johnson, players such as Miles Turner, Kelly Oubre, and Devin Booker were still available. And again,
the Devin Booker one really hurts.
Selecting someone such as Miles Turner or Devin Booker would not have been that far-fetched for the Detroit Pistons.
I honestly wanted Justice Winslow. Would have been better than Stanley Johnson. Not like anything amazing, obviously. I would have been, pretty mad about that pick anyway. But, missing out on Devin Booker and Kelly Oubre. Terry Rozier, all better. all significantly better.
even with the 8th overall selection. Now, luckily, the Detroit Pistons were not heavily dependent on Stanley Johnson and his productivity to be a winning franchise. And by the end of the 2015-2016 season, they not only ended with a 44-win record, but they also ended the season with a playoff berth, meaning that for the first time in years,
And we got swept by the Cavs.
However, the selection that they made with the 18th overall pick during the 2016 draft was
Trash.
still a massive mistake. Because with the pick, they decided to go with Henry Ellenson, despite the fact that players such as Malik Beasley, Karis LeVert, and Pascal Siakam were still available. The missing productivity that resulted in fumbling 2 first-round picks, as well as Reggie Jackson missing a third of the regular season, really hurt the Pistons during the 2016-2017 year, and by the end of the season, the Pistons were back in the lottery. And entering the 2017 draft class with the 12th overall selection, Detroit decided to select Luke Kennard, a decision that
Picked at number 13, Donovan Mitchell. I mean, we know
honestly made a lot of sense, as the Detroit Pistons at the time were struggling.
Luke Kennard's not bad. His defense is trash,
Because
which
of
is
this,
obviously
the
not what we
Pistons have
want,
already
but
parted ways with Luke Kennard at the ripe age of 24. To make matters worse, if we go back to the 2017 draft and we see the 2 players who were selected after Luke Kennard and Donovan Mitchell,
I forgot about Bam too.
it is clear, even in the early stages of their careers, that the Pistons have made yet again another massive mistake.
Yep.
And finally, we are at the 2018 draft, where the Pistons...
Now, because of the... My dog's going crazy. But because of the trade with... We traded Luke Kennard. Got rid of Luke Kennard, I think, and we got, like, the Clippers pick. Right, he went to the Clippers, right? But, and then I think that pick was used for Sadiq Bey or something, I think. Who... Right? I think it was Sadiq Bey this year. He's looking solid, so who knows? But obviously Donovan Mitchell being an all-star already, being one of the best 2s in the league already, being runner-up rookie of the year, it hurts.
Unfortunately, do not have their first-round pick because they decided to part ways with it in a transaction in which they received Blake Griffin. With it, the Clippers decided to draft Miles Bridges, and on draft night traded Bridges to the Charlotte Hornets, and in return received Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who
we could have had Shea, Devin Booker, Bam or Donovan Mitchell, Kemba Walker, Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, Vucevic, Jokic, Spencer Dinwiddie, Chris Middleton. I know not every team drafts correctly every year, but it's like, to miss this many times is just so bad. It's so embarrassing.
even though it's not an all-star, and quite honestly more than likely won't be an all-star, as the competition out west is very tough at the guard position, has already proven to be a really good player in the NBA, and it can produce at a near all-star level, with him only being in the league for the past 2 years.
I think his efficiency is going to go down a lot this year because he doesn't have Chris Paul, and the rest of the team kind of sucks.
Decided to part ways with another player that they drafted with a top 10 pick in Andre Drummond.
I'm fine with that.
Essentially, only received second-round picks for his service.
Yeah, and I'm actually fine with what happened. I would have been. I mean, at the end of the day, you get a second-round pick. You either get a second-round pick or you just let him walk. Because to me, paying him, I think, should not have been an option. He's not worth the... I pay him maybe 15 mil. Oh, but, like... And obviously someone will pay more than 15 mil for Andre Drummond. But, like... Because, like, Rudy Gobert just got the max. So Andre Drummond's going to get, a decent payday. Really should. I mean, I know he's worse than Rudy Gobert. But, like... I'm just not paying a guy like Andre Drummond that much money. So,
which when we look back, we can see is a common theme with Detroit. Because it is one thing to swing and miss hard on a few selections over the course of an entire decade. Even some franchises who have great scouting departments will fall victim to this. But the mistakes are highlighted even more when you go back and you look at how little in return the Pistons received for all of these young prospects and draft picks. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoy this type of content,
make sure you check out this guy's channel. But I don't think we messed up with Andre Drummond in picking him, in dealing him for only a second round pick. The only issue I have with that is we didn't build a team around him. Like, regardless of if we didn't screw up any, like, if we still had the same draft picks, imagine if we kept Spencer Dinwiddie and Chris Middleton. I think that'd be a solid big three. Obviously, not like championship contenders at all, because none of them are, you know, a first option on a championship contending team. But it could be similar to, like, you know, the 04 Pistons, in which, like, you know, the two best players were on the Lakers, but you just had just a complete starting lineup of just like 5 really good players. But yeah, overall, the Andre Drummond pick I'm not too upset about. All the other ones I'm very upset about not getting. I mean, just consistently missing on them is just awful. I mean, like, we couldn't have even hit one, and so that's kind of what makes me not give a shit. Like about, like, or like, I feel like that's what causes fans to be harsher on some teams. Like, I feel like already, I mean, obviously, you know, the rookies from this year, you know, I don't know, haven't even played like 10 games, or like played 10 games max or something. But just looking at Killian Hayes right now, we pull up Killian Hayes' stats, it's not looking good. And I know he's just a rookie. You know, he's played less. And he's injured now, I think, for the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure he's out for the season. Something. But just when he was playing, bro, less than 28%, 25 from 3. Like, his shooting is god-awful. In 21 minutes, I mean, 3.6 assists to 2.4 turnovers, I feel like is not good at all. I feel like that's not good at all. I mean, and then if we bring up Tyrese Halliburton, yeah, I've already looked at their stats. I mean, 52, 50, 89, and I get they're in 2 completely different roles, you know, because, you know, the Kings have De'Aaron Fox, while Killian Hayes was kind of just thrown into the starting role, and, like, Derrick Rose was going to mentor him for the year until either, you know, the rest of the year, or if we traded Derrick Rose if he wanted to go. But just already seeing it is very underwhelming. It's very underwhelming. And I think that's what causes fans to be like, if they're not good right away, then fans are going to get upset. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing these reaction videos. It literally just came up in my feed, and I thought this would be interesting to react to. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.